Hey guys, I'm doing another deck spotlight today where you guys send me in one of your decks and I take a look at it, give my opinions and thoughts on how it runs, and maybe give some advice as well. So today we're taking a look at a Gusto deck. This was sent in by Vexed Ouja, and it uses some traditional Gusto stuff and it also does some other things, and I'll give some ideas on it, but I think there's definitely some improvements and some areas that I think might use some new ideas. So first off, 2 Caam, definitely fine for this deck, giving Gusto some draw power and additionally somewhat of a beater, not too bad. And then he's going to be running 2 Egul and 2 Gulldo. Very important cards for this deck. In my Gusto, I believe I'm running 3 of each, so it might be a consideration to run more because of how important they are to make the plays you want to make. And then he's running 2 Falco, so I'm not running this with mine. I'm not sure if it's really the best idea. It obviously can do some additional things, but because it's probably going to get destroyed by battle, its effect won't come into play as often, which can be kind of annoying, even though it does give you access to, different levels and synchros. And then Squirro, another level 2. This one I think is a little more useful in terms of what it can do, because you can bring out those higher level gustos, and if you're running more higher level gustos, that can be useful. And they won't go over it through battle as often, but they still probably will when they bring out powerful monsters. So again, I'm not really sure if people are going to use card effects once they know that card will give them a big bonus. So it's tough to say if you really want to run these. They're not going to be as useful, I think, unless they'll get destroyed while face down. And then 2 Gusto Tunbolt can be very useful, bringing out some specific gustos. Obviously, you can bring out, a very powerful higher level gustos, which is really, really nice. And then 2 Kamui, helping you get out those tuners, so very, very useful to choose what you want. And then 2 Musto, another beater in this deck, which can be very useful, and his effect can be very interesting. And then 1 Reeze. Reeze can be very useful to get certain things that you want in order to make certain synchro plays, and it can be special summoned with Tunbolt, so that can be really nice. And then 2 Winda, very useful for this deck, definitely good thing to run, 2 or 3 of this. And then Windaar, I'm not really a big fan of this card, just because its effect won't come off as often. But because you can special summon it, you can make a lot of interesting synchro plays. So I'm not going to be completely against it, but not a huge fan of it myself. And after the spell, so he's going to be running 2 Rising Air Current. So this is something I definitely have sort of an issue with, because you kind of want your gustos to be destroyed. It will give you some bonuses, but it's not going to really help you in the way that I think you'll really want it to. You'll want to bring out those Gusto Synchros and activate their effects more often. It's going to work against Sphreez. It's going to work against your Gustos getting destroyed, so you can bring out, those higher level things. So I'm not really sure if I really want to run this. I can see the idea because Gustos are very weak, but I don't think, 500 points is not going to help you with your lower level Gustos. It's going to make your higher level ones pretty strong, but that's not really the point of them. So I'm really debating this a lot, and I'm not sure if I'd really want to run it, but it's up to him. 2 Contact with Gusto, obviously helping him destroy things. I think Quill Pen is better than Contact these days. I think bouncing is more important, so it's up to you whether you think you want to run more of this, more Quill Pen, depending on what you think is best. 1 MST, I really think you need more than 1 MST. Even though you have Contact with Gusto that can destroy things, these days you really want to have 2 or 3 MSTs in your deck. And then 1 Swords of Revealing Light can be helpful for stalling, but I don't know if Gustos really want to keep battle from happening, so I'm not sure if I'd really agree with this. Scapegoat can give you some interesting synchro plays, so that's definitely an interesting thing you could do, but again, I'm not really sure if I'd really want to run it. And 1 Quill Pen, like I was saying, that's fine. Dark Hole, definitely good to have. For the traps, he's going to be running 2 Blessings for Gusto. I'm not as big of a fan of this. It can help you bring out, those Gusto Synchros back, which can do some interesting things, but I guess it's kind of debatable for me. And having so many things in this deck that recycle the Gustos might be a bit much when you run out of cards. Duststorm of Gusto, helping him deal with effects when he attacks. I think there's kind of better things that you could do rather than this, so not a big fan of this card choice actually, but if you want to run those, you can. Obviously, they are meant for the archetype. And then Dark Bribe, another card I feel like I'm hating a lot, but I'm not. I'm just really trying to give my opinions. Not a huge fan of Dark Bribe, especially because you're only running 1 MST. I kind of feel like it's more important to have MST than Dark Bribe overall. And then Whirlwind of Gusto can help you special summon some things, which can be very, very interesting. Again, he has a lot bringing things back to the deck, so I might have a bit of an issue with that. You might want to cut that down a little bit. Solemn Warning, Scrap-Iron Scarecrow again for stalling. I'm not really sure if that's what you're going to want to try to do with this deck. Bottomless Trap Hole is fine. Sealing Ceremony of Raiton, definitely an interesting one that you can deal with graveyard stuff, but this is more of a tech card, I'd say, to side this, depending on what decks you're playing against, because against a lot of decks, this will be useless, and against a lot of other decks, it could be really great, so definitely a tech card choice, I'd say there. So now for his extra deck, he's going to have 2 of each of the Gustos, which is definitely fine because he has kind of an interesting variation on levels. He could bring them all out, but he's really missing a lot in terms of generic synchros that could really help him out in the deck. So that's something I'd mention. The XYZs is definitely a bit much in terms of Gustos. Daigusto Emeral, run it at 1 or 2. Daigusto Phoenix, run it at 1 or 0, honestly. You really don't need that many copies of these just because they go along with the archetype. They can help you do some things, but they're more generic cards that help just decks that have these levels in them. So yeah, that's definitely an issue. You really could use a lot more generic XYZs and Synchros that have additional plays and not keep doing the same thing. He's also running 1 Baby Tiragon, which he can't even get out in this deck, so definitely no point running this. Slacker Magician helping him with stalling, but I wouldn't say you want to overlay Eguls to bring out Slacker Magician. I'd rather want to have them out to use their effect or bring out Synchros. Some of the ideas, most of this is pulled from my deck, so I don't want to turn his deck into my deck. I'm just going to give ideas from my deck. I think Junk Synchron could be a useful card with this deck, but it was just kind of replaced with Polisi, which is a really good card, which a lot of people should consider running. Mistbird, I'd say to run Mistbird. You can get that out with 2 and 1, and then you can bring out 1 and get out Falcos, so that's another choice. Even if you're not running those level 2 tuners, you could still get out Falcos that way. And then generic synchros, like I said, Catastor, Black Rose, Scrap Dragon, consider cards like that, which could be very powerful. And then a really good card for this deck can be Ultimate Axiom Kicker, an alternative boss. So, you could throw that in, Miracle Synchro Fusion, and you'll have a very powerful monster that can be very useful. So I definitely think you should think about that. And you can bring out other Psychic Synchros if you want in order to make that happen. And then Emergency Teleport, another great card for this deck. I think it could be really useful, and I think it should be run in Gustos to make those plays. And Creature Swap can be very useful for this deck to switch around those low attack Gustos and then bring out whatever you need. It can be really powerful in this deck. So those are just some of the ideas. Again, I'm not trying to bash on the deck. I think it definitely is decent and has some interesting things going for it. But I think it can be a little more ideal when it throws in more things that you'll see in a lot of other decks. More generic traps, maybe more generic spells, more generic synchros and XYZs. Probably cut down a little bit on the monsters and try to think of the more important things you're doing with the deck and not try to fill the deck with everything from the archetype, because that's not really what you want to go for if you want to make the deck as consistent as possible. But thank you to Vexed Ouja for the deck. If you guys have a deck you want me to take a look at, you can hit me up on Twitter. You could post in the comments, anything like that. Contact me somehow, give me a deck list, and I'll consider it for my deck requests. But as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.